Okay guys, I'm going to give you a rundown of the pros and cons of the Marshall MG100 FX solid state amp, which I've owned for about 4 years, and I bought mine used, so it's probably at least a 10-year-old amp. Okay, so I'm going to go through the pros first. Number one, it's a Marshall. I won't say everybody wants a Marshall, but when I was young, definitely Marshall was the amp of choice, so a lot of people, it's kind of their dream to own a Marshall. I don't know if that's what it's like for teenagers today, if they care about the Marshall name brand, but Marshall definitely carries a lot with it. Okay, so you do get a Marshall with this amp, and it puts you in the basic, it does give you that basic Marshall tone. I'm going to talk about that in the cons as well. It's obviously not a Marshall tube amp, but it does get you that basic Marshall rock sound. Okay, so that's the first thing. And again, when you're buying a name brand amp, it's always easy to resell, and often if you buy it used, you'll be able to sell it again for the same price. So that's the one advantage of name brands. On that note, it's very affordable. I actually traded a Vox VT, I think it was a 30 for this amp. So it would have been around a $250 value at the time. This is 4 years ago. And it is, so I could still sell that amp today for $250 or $300 pretty easily in Canada. Okay. Next pro would be it has a variety of rock sounds. Okay, so you get cleans out of it, and you get some. It's got 4 channels. It's got the clean and overdrive, and then 2 gain channels. So you get a variety of tones. You can. I use the foot switch quite often, and you can get heavier and heavier when you need to. It is not a metal amp, and I'll talk about that again with the cons, but if you're interested in Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Ozzy, those kind of bands, then this is an ideal amp that'll cover all your bases, not necessarily get you pinpoint exactly on those sounds, but it'll get you pretty darn close, especially for bedroom warriors like myself. Another pro is it comes with effects, okay, and I'll probably stick a picture on there, but it's got chorus, flanger, phaser, comes right in with it. So just a few basic effects. So it's a straightforward, simple amp, which I actually prefer. There's a lot of modular amps you can buy out there in the similar price range, and you get 100 different sounds. And some people are going to love that, but truthfully, on a day-to-day practice, for me, I just like to have my sound, and I'm not looking to mess with it all the time. It is another real bonus with it that I believe is just with the 100 watts. I can't speak to the brand new Marshall MGs, but with the 100 watt, you can disconnect the cable at the back, and you can use it as a 1x12 cabinet. So I could take another head, when I've had my Randall head at home, then I can plug it into my Marshall and play it through that, which is pretty awesome. And also, I can hook my Marshall MG into a 4x12 cab or a 2x12 or something like that if you wanted to. And you will see the sound improve significantly. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. If I had my Randall head or a different head sitting up on top of the amp, all I have to do is pull out that plug in that head, and I'm good to go, and I can use my Marshall as a cab. Okay? Or plug it into a 4x12. It's that simple. Alright, it's going. Alright guys, here is the Marshall MG plugged into a 4x12. I believe it's a Behringer. And I'll just give you a couple sounds with that. It's no effects. We'll throw a little no effects. We'll throw a little chorus on there. So cons about the amp. So why wouldn't you want the 100 watt MG? First of all, if you're at a higher level of playing, you've been playing for a long time, then the some people will say it's not a real Marshall sound. If it's not a Marshall tube amp. So if you're looking for a tube sound, clearly the MG is not it. So I did say I think it does get you into that Marshall family of sound, that familiar, but it's not a tube amp. So some people just will never consider it. The other thing is the 100 watt is probably overkill for most people in most situations. So in the bedroom when I'm in the house, the amp probably doesn't go past 2 very often. Maybe if nobody's home, occasionally I'll crank it up to 3 or 4 on the master volume. But other than that, it's really played low. The other thing is the amp itself, when you're transporting, it's fairly large. So I mean, it's not the biggest deal to move once a year. But again, if I jam with a band on a regular basis, I got a rig there. Now I'm starting to jam with some other guys on the side, so I've been bringing my Marshall. Okay, so it's crossed my mind that it would probably be far easier to have a 50 watt Marshall instead of a 100 watt, because even when I'm jamming with drums and everything else, I mean, I'm still not usually going past 3 or 4 on the volume. I'm still keeping it pretty low. So before you go out and buy a 100 watt, you got to think, why do I want a 100 watt amp? What's the real reason, and how often is that amp going to be cranked up? It's not going to be very often. I don't know anybody that has their 100 watts max volume. The next con, if you want to call it a con, is it's not the best clean or the best distortion. So what I mean by that is, I mean, it's not a Fender amp. If you're looking for clean and blues, you're probably not going to be playing the Marshall MG. And if you're looking for a modern metal sound, I don't think you'll be looking at the Marshall MG either. I think when I first got the amp, I was a little bit disappointed with the distortion. Even though the reality is, I mean, most amps, most players, even professionals, right, they're running pedals and effects through their amp regardless of what system they're using, okay? So this amp will play metal, but you're going to have to put pedals in front of it to do that, okay? But if you're counting on just the Marshall gain itself to get you a modern metal sound, it won't. Like I said, it'll cover your bases like Ozzy and Guns N' Roses and that kind of thing, but it's not the modern metal sound. If you're looking for modern metal, to me, I'd suggest Randall or some other brands like that. It's not a modular amp, okay? So there's a lot of options out there now. You can pick amps where you can just push a button, you know, if you want the Black Sabbath Iron Man sound, and it's right there. You push another button and you're going to switch, you know, you're going to get Enter Sandman and all those things. So this amp does not do that. So that would be a con to some people. So I recommend this amp to bedroom warriors, okay, intermediate players, people that are playing at home, people that are occasionally even playing with drums. Other people are going to bring their amps over. If you're not doing any of that stuff, you probably should be looking at a smaller amp. You might still want the Marshall MG, but look at the 30 or the 50 watt. There's no point. Honestly, even if they're the same price, a 50 watt and 100 watt, which sometimes they are, it's probably still more of a pain just to own the 100 watt. So you might be happier with the 50 watt, even though you think the 100 is a better deal. So yeah, people that are doing occasional gigs, you're playing with drums, you're an intermediate, you've moved up from your beginner amp, then all those people will be, I think, will be happy with the Marshall MG. And this isn't, I'm not trying to say this is just an intermediate amp. I mean, I've been playing guitar for about 20 years, and I'm happy to play out of it. I hope that helps you out if you're considering the Marshall MG. It's definitely a good amp, and let me know if it's the right amp for you guys. Give me your comments below. Thanks for watching.